Hello, everybody. Welcome to June 19th. After today, we only have one more Friday left in June, which is kind of crazy. And then the Friday after that is the 4th of July weekend, which I'm sure most people are looking forward to. But today we are talking, we've been tending to use a lot of our Fridays lately to dive into the tapestry of what makes Beyond Indigo, because we as a team, as a lot of companies are moving back into a virtual work from home space, which was rather sudden and adjusting, are now looking long term now that we've made these adjustments. In Beyond Indigo, we've been 100% virtually based since conception, which was 23 years ago. So we've been being asked a lot by different companies, like, how do you guys do it? What works? And all that. So we're calling it the tapestry of Beyond Indigo. And there's different threads in that tapestry that make up our online virtual work experience. And we're teasing those apart a little bit and doing them in more of these videos. So far we've worked on parenting, you might have seen it. Today we're going to be doing productivity. Next Friday or soon will be about staff meetings. And so we're trying to pull little snippets apart so that people who are trying to work from home or think about moving their company to home have something to work from or look in more deep dives. So because it's productivity today, we are talking, and we being Jeanne Pelletier, our COO, and William Lindus, who is our Director of Operations. And we are at the top of the hierarchy of Beyond Indigo, and we're going to talk about productivity. So first of all, the productivity, people immediately think like time clocks and how are people doing their jobs. But there's a little bit more than that goes into productivity. What you really have to start with is your conception of what is a human being. Like, what is your sense of the value of a human being, and what do they mean? A lot of our working model as a company was first, transformed after World War II to more of an assembly productivity line, a production line of how many widgets do you get off, how many hours does it take to get the widgets, how much does it cost. And really, that's, at least for Beyond Indigo, isn't a model that worked for us. Instead, I personally believe every human being is valuable. They have a really good brain on their shoulders, and they have a lot to add. So how do we tap into that creativity and that value as a human being that they bring to the table with all their experiences? And how can we create a symbiotic culture that allows productivity to emerge or grow from that versus a parasitic culture where we prey on the worker and we micromanage them? So you got to look at your culture and your view of humanity first, of what you believe in, and then grow your system from there. So actually, I'm just going to use that segue to go to you, Jeanne, because you always talk about importance of hiring for the culture. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. Productivity for us really starts with the hiring process. Mm-hmm. When you are a remote company like Beyond Indigo, we need to have people who are capable of working independently. So we spend a lot of time during the interview process talking about how people work, where they work, if they have worked remotely before, if they haven't worked remotely, what kinds of supports might they need, and how do they think they might make that transition? And we listen a lot. One of the things that we hear a lot from applicants and from our staff who've worked other remote positions is that there hasn't been any communication, that they get their work assignments, but they just haven't felt like part of a company. And we have a really, really different philosophy here at Beyond Indigo. We embrace our remote connections. And when somebody comes to Beyond Indigo, we get them right onto Slack. We get them right into all of our communication technologies. And we make sure that they are comfortable using them and that they have the tools at home that they need in order to work effectively. And one of the things we do very early on with people is that we require our staff to be on video for meetings. And that does a couple of things. Visual communication is part of effective communication. It's way more effective to see and hear somebody than to always just hear some disembodied voice. So it fosters better communication among our team. And then it also gets our staff very comfortable being on video, and comfortable being on video kind of at a moment's notice for a quick chat. So they do things like they pay attention to their environment, to their lighting, to do they have a quiet workspace in order to be on video. So I think all of those things in the beginning set a good stage for all of the productivity that we look at later on in their hiring.
And we kind of make adjustments. I mean, a few times we're like, hey, you kind of look like you're on the witness protection program for the CIA because your lighting is so far off, right? Or like, the washing machine and dryer behind you is maybe not the look we're going for today, with it running, right? So we've kind of had those moments where we've had some adjustments to make to help people be in the right place for a virtual environment.
And I think we see that even, as you said, Kelly, in the interviews. Like sometimes that's something we tell from the get-go. If somebody is in an interview and the washing machine is like next to them, that tells us something about how comfortable they might be being on video. So if we pay a lot of attention to all the signals when we're hiring and when we're first bringing we board.
Totally. And it matters. But we had to learn that. We get that right away. That was definitely a learning curve for us being in a virtual environment. Like, that kind of matters. We should maybe really focus on that and hone into that. And then once we have them hired and we have them in, we actually have a whole onboarding process. And you take care of that onboarding process. And then also, can you explain a little bit about team communication? Like, we're insane on Slack. We burn that. Yeah. Look at our statistics every week. And I'm like, holy moly, it is insane. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, Kelly. One of the things that's really fascinating about working from this virtual environment is just how much we've had to lean into the pros and the cons of it and turn all of those cons into pros. I've had several people who work traditional office jobs that are, friends in my life ask, well, how do you deal with the fact that you're not talking to your teammates and your staff as much? And my answer is always, I'm actually talking to them probably more than I would had I been in that traditional office environment. So when we have someone, they finish the onboarding process, they've been hired, they've come on board with us, we are in meetings with them very frequently, whether that be a quick conversation through Slack or direct message, whether that be getting on a video conference call to check in on the day, to give them some training, sitting in with a team member to go through like, well, I'm trying to figure out how to handle this account, to work through some of the specifics. We have a lot of these communication points baked into every single day and every single week. And I think the other thing about that is we've made sure that these communication points are not only high quantity, to Jeanne's point, we have video, we have the expectation of video, but they're high quality as well. We make sure that when someone is communicating face-to-face with a team member, we are face-to-face. We have a rule here, no cameras have to be on. And that's because if I were working in a traditional office, I couldn't walk over to Jeanne or Kelly's desk and hide behind the partition. I'm face to face with you the whole time. You're reading these visual cues. You're hearing the inflection of my voice. You're watching my posture. You're watching these little, well, like I said, physical cues. And that's all a big part of communication. Now, the other thing that's really nice about working in this virtual environment is that the conversations get to happen when they most need to happen. This is a point that I remember. I've done the office grind before, and a lot of the personal interactions that you had with each other, talking about family, activities, hobbies, the things that we're passionate about, the thing that make us not just employees, but human beings that are part of the company. A lot of those interactions were sort of forced into little boxes. I might run into you at the water cooler, or I might sit next to you in the lunch break room, and that's our time to catch up on family. Because I can't do it in the productive space. I have to do it in the social space. Or perhaps I'm on my way to the bathroom, and someone is coming back from the bathroom, and we stop and we have a quick interaction in a place where It's not an ideal location. But here, a lot of these interactions that we have happen when they need to happen. I can reach out to Jeanne and say, Jeanne, I want to tell you about this amazing thing that happened to me over the weekend. And it's at a time that is convenient for me. And because we're in a virtual environment, if Jeanne's in a meeting right now, she can just say, no problem, we'll come back to that in a second. Or if she's in a great place to do it, we can have that micro interaction. We can build that bond. And again, it's not, we don't have to like step away to the water cooler to do it. We just fold that into our interactions. We've had these times where we've had a chance to meet up in person, whether it be at a conference, a veterinary conference. We happen to be in the same city for like personal travel and we decide to meet up, something along those lines. And every single time that I've met someone for the first time in person that I've interacted with because we've worked together for years, we always do the same thing without fail. We have this wonderful conversation and then we stop and go, oh yeah, this is the first time we've met each other, huh? Because we've had that interaction, it feels so natural. It doesn't feel like a first time meeting. That doesn't happen just out of nowhere. We have to cultivate it, but we've done that here. We've cultivated that.
So we onboard the way that works for our culture. We have this really strong communication net. So we go, well, how does that really go into productivity? Well, it goes because we know everybody's here. Like we can tell when somebody's gone because our culture and our connectivity is so intense and so lightning, and we have different subject rooms in our Slack for different interests that people have that they connect with. So it's sort of like in an office space, you can tell when somebody's gone, like physically gone. We have set everything up that because of our communication style, the way we interact, the way we connect with each other, it's very obvious when somebody is not there. And there's no way they could just go and sit and do Netflix instead of doing their job because of the way our culture has been put together. So that culture and the way we connect is very important. We do have some monitoring things because we work on an hourly basis, kind of like, think about the legal profession. They work on an hourly basis and working with clients. We work the same way. So we track our hours internally using a software system just to make sure we're managing our clients well. That's just one of our tools, and it's not, I wouldn't even say it's the most important. It would be really down the list. What we look at productivity is, what did we do for our client? What were the results we got for our client? We get deals through the door for our client. So even our concept of productivity has changed. A lot of people are like, productivity is you build an 8-hour day, clock. You were there 8 hours. You may have been playing solitaire on your phone, but you were there. You were there for 8 hours. And we're like, yeah, no, that's not good enough for us. What we want to know is the results and what did we get out of those times and how people were there. And that it shifts the focus of the conversation from have you put in your hours to have you met your goals. So that's one of the things. Another thing for productivity that we're looking at right now, and well, you don't have to pull this up, but I actually saw a newspaper ad for this. We constantly look at the well-being of the employee at Beyond Indigo because, again, we're in a synergetic environment, a symbiotic environment with our whole team is. We work together because if the company's healthy, the team's healthy. If the team's healthy, the company's healthy. We don't prey one on the other, or nobody lasts long if that's the case because Beyond Indigo's culture doesn't allow it. But we just shift to 4-day work weeks for some of the staff. We're doing a trial period with that because it's a European thing that people are working on, and they're showing that people's productivity go up when they have a 3-day weekend. And you guys have seen that, right? You both are working on that. Do you guys have any comment with that?
I think it really has, it's really changed the way that I look at my work week. And because I've gone to the 4-day work week, and it makes me so relaxed on the weekend. I think no matter how much you love your job, we always get the Sunday scaries, at about noontime. And it's like, oh my God, the week is about to start. And for me, having Monday off just makes Sunday very relaxed and a day that I can just focus on my family and, on other things in my life. And Monday feels like a better day to, start easing back in and to do some of the appointments and some of the other things that I have. But even for people who aren't on 4-day work weeks, one of the things that is really important, because we are a life first company, is that people take time during the day to do the things that are important to them. If their child has a presentation somewhere, they can go to that. We had one of our staff was at her daughter's golf tournament the other day, and she was set up working from behind the clubhouse. And she was able to be there for her child and be there for Beyond Indigo. So we don't have a situation where people are having to sneak off to go do the laundry or sneak off to go to the doctors or, not say anything when they go to their kids' school. We really embrace those things and trust that they're going to figure out how to get their work done, either like the staff member who was working behind the clubhouse, or maybe they work a little later that day or take care of some of the things they need to do earlier in the morning. So I think that life first attitude is really, really helps us in our productivity.
And you use the word trust, Jeanne. I mean, it gets down to trust and respect, right? Like you trust that everybody else is a human being and that they can manage their own time, right? And that you can go do something for an hour and come back and make that up. And we don't take that off our PTO, everybody. That's just, PTO is big chunks of days time. Like if you're gone a day, then that's PTO time. If you're gone an hour, we're like, yeah, let us know when you're back. So you're right, Jeanne. It's very much about trust.
That trust is huge. And, it's important for us because I know that it's part of the culture that we've built here. It's a part of who we want to be as a company. Like we want to be the type of company that both instills trust and receives trust. It becomes a two-way road there. But even from just looking at the productivity numbers perspective, that trust plays a huge part in that, because like you mentioned, people aren't having to sneak off to go to doctor's appointments. They're more forthright about that thing. People don't have to do the thing that the joke that happens, the whole I'm calling out sick when someone has something personal that they have going on in life. Maybe it's an event that they want to go to, something for their kids, something along those lines. We trust our employees, and in return, they trust us to be able to tell us, hey, I'm going to take the afternoon off because this thing is important to me. And they don't have to pretend to be sick. Or if someone is under the weather and needs to just lay down for an hour and then come back and work a little bit more, they know that they can do that. They're not having to push through a headache, during which time their work is probably not going to be super productive anyways. They can step away, get themselves back to feeling the way they need to feel, then come back and be productive. So it's a good thing for us just as human beings and who we want to be, but it also makes the quality of our work better too. I think the two things can live in harmony.
I agree. So we covered a lot of topics today, about the underpinnings of just how do you view a human being before you start, to, onboarding, communication, and trust. And all of those are soft items, but really matter in productivity. So, I guess I would say to everybody out there listening to this, first step back and look at your philosophies of where you stand as a company and a culture, and then build the things and into that. Don't start with, well, I have to clock everybody's time and how do I know they're there and whether they're saying, that's the wrong end of the conversation to start with. It's really the front end of who are your people, how do you treat your people, and how do you want to encourage them to be the best person they ever want to be. So we'll continue these series as we pull apart the strands of the tapestry of Beyond Indigo, which makes us Beyond Indigo, and hopefully share with all of you in future Fridays. So stay tuned with us. And until then, have a really great weekend, and we're glad you were here. Thanks, Jeanne. Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.